Hey everyone, my name's Thomas, and it is a beautiful spring day here on Vancouver Island in Canada, and it's the year 2024. In the vlog that you're about to watch, I'm going to take you back in time a little bit to the year 2016 when I did a trip to China. If you didn't catch part 1, that featured my trip to China back in 2011, and if you haven't seen that vlog, you might want to check it out. I'll leave a link below so you can get a little bit of the backstory as to why I went to China in the first place. Part 2, which you're about to watch, will feature photos and short video clips from the trip in 2016. And what you're about to see in this video are some of the most magical and spectacular mountains on the planet. And if that isn't enough, you're also going to see some video clips of some absolutely adorable pandas doing what apparently pandas do all day long, which is to just frolic and have a whole lot of fun. So let's get started, and I'll describe the trip as well as I'll tell you a couple of stories that I think you'll enjoy that happened along the way. My trip started off in Chengdu, China, and during the entire trip, which I think lasted about 6 weeks long, I stayed in hostels, and the price range was, I think, about $15 to about 25 Canadian dollars, and that was for a private room, and sometimes with a private bathroom and sometimes a shared bathroom. As mentioned in part 1, the people working in the hostels were really helpful, and most of those young people spoke fairly good English. Of all the countries that I visited, China was most definitely the country that was most challenging to get around. And the reason why is pretty simple. It's language barrier, and of course the Mandarin, Cantonese, whatever you want to call it, alphabet is nothing like our English alphabet, so you can't just read the signs overly easily. But of course nowadays you can use an app and just take a photo of the Mandarin characters and it'll translate it for you. But back at that time, if they had it, I didn't know about it. So yeah, it was a little bit challenging to get around at times, but again, the people working in the hostels were super helpful, and they would literally write out instructions in Mandarin that I could present to the ticket office in the bus station or wherever, train station, and the person would know that I wanted a sleeper compartment or class 3 or whatever, and where I was going. So they're great in that way. Fortunately, when I was in Chengdu, it just so happened that somebody that I know from Vancouver Island, who was born and raised in China, they were in Chengdu to visit with family, and so I was able to meet up with her and a friend, and we went out for one of those, I think they call it a hot pot, wherein they have a whole bunch of different foods. And if I'm being honest, which I will be, some of it is really good, and some of it, for my personal taste, I didn't really care for. But it was a really fun experience, and it was really nice to meet somebody on my first couple days that I knew, and she was really helpful for helping me to get around as well. I also went to, it's called the Wenshu Monastery, and the monastery is only a few blocks from the hostel, and you literally do see practicing monks in their orange robes at the monastery, and so that's kind of cool if you're into that kind of a thing. The Wenshu Monastery was actually a really cool place to hang out and to just chill out, but there were actually quite a few people there, and so it could be a little bit noisy, but either way it was still a really neat place to visit. And if you're into Chinese style kung fu movies or movies like Bulletproof Monk, then it's you really feel like you're at a movie set, because it looks just like in some of the movies that you might see on TV from old days. And nearby the monastery, there's actually quite a few places to eat as well. But as mentioned in the previous video, ordering food can be a challenge in China, because if the menus are all in Mandarin characters, unless you have photos, it's a challenge. But it's just one of the things you have to figure out when you're doing a trip to a place like China. If by chance you ever happen to be in Chengdu, one of the must-visit places is definitely the Panda Bear Sanctuary, because as I'm sure most people are aware, whether it's because they've watched Kung Fu Panda or they've watched a documentary about panda bears, they have to be one of the, if not the most adorable things on planet Earth. And I literally could have just stayed there for hour after hour watching them playing and eating, and it's just an amazing experience seeing panda bears. I mean, they're so cute and adorable. I think they're tame enough. I think that you can literally, pet them if you're allowed to, but it was a lot of fun. I'd love to be able to do something like that again.
跑了没对，跑了没对，有3大整个跑啊，就在这里骑的啊。哦，这个比较壮，难怪会这么跑。哎，他这又爬了100、360度这样转啊转的。爬了好远这只。哦。现在爬不起来，对那时候哎出来了，脸出来了。爬不熟。哪里呢？我里吧。跑走了。这个在哪里？等会3道。去哪里？你那刘志岭呢？左边。去这里。
四雄混战。哇塞，太高了！
成日都令到嗰邊嘅，都成日俾個攞有人睇嘅真係。
我刚才说学生好像美国比防来装
Another place that I went to while in Chengdu was a tour to visit the Lishan Buddha. And that's a gigantic Buddha that was carved out of a riverbank side, and it's the world's largest, I think, riverside Buddha. But of course, if you've been to Southeast Asia before, there's all kinds of gigantic Buddhas, and this one here was kind of cool. Not super duper exciting, but it was definitely worth the visit. And of course, I'll show you some photos of it, and you can decide for yourself whether it might be something you'd want to visit if you were there. After spending 3 or 4 days in Chengdu, resting up and doing some not overly strenuous activities, it was on to one of the feature locations that I went to during my first trip. However, I wasn't very happy with the photos that I got on that first trip, so I definitely wanted to go back to a place called Zhangjiajie National Park. And to get there, I had to do a train journey. And this is where the adventure really began, and I can share a funny and interesting story for you. The trip to Zhangjiajie required 2 legs on a train, and it wasn't the fast bullet train, it was an older regular train. I can't remember how many hours it was, but it was at least 8 to 10 hour journey total on the train. So I get on the train, and to my amazement, a very pretty younger Chinese girl sits down across from me. She looked to be about 19, 20 years old, and I was presuming that she didn't speak any English, which later turned out to be right. But anyway, there was hardly anybody in the whole train compartment, and so I fully expected that she was probably going to move, because there's only literally me and her in a booth that could fit 6 people. So I thought for sure she'd probably move and, you know, not want to be hanging out with a foreigner for several hours, but she didn't. Anyhow, there was no communication with her for the whole train trip. But then when I got to the first location called Lanzhou, the train station was absolutely packed. And this city was not a tourist destination whatsoever. So there is no foreigners at all on the train. And I knew there wouldn't be, because when I was waiting for the train, all I saw were Chinese people, which is to be expected when you're going to a more remote town where there's no tourism. So anyway, I ended up losing my ticket for the next leg, and so I had to go to find an office and try to explain that I lost my ticket and see if they'd just issue me another ticket. But of course, it didn't work quite that easy. They said that they would actually, I'd had to pay for a new ticket, I'd be in the same seat as before. But once I got to the next location, then I could request to get that money back. So wasn't particularly looking forward to that. It's my own fault though, so did it to myself. And so I was a little bit annoyed that I'd lost a ticket and had to go through the hassle of trying to get a resolution. So I go back in the main train station area, and it clearly has marked no smoking. But of course, the Chinese men in particular don't really care about that, so they're smoking. So it's filled with smoke, which I'm not too crazy about. And it's really loud. And I'm hauling my luggage around, and so I kind of just found a place to stand near a wall. And I'm next to this Chinese man, middle-aged. And before long, I notice he's gobbing all on the floor inside the train station. So basically what he's doing, to give you the exact idea of what he's doing, he's going seemingly making a show of it, because he did it really loud. He didn't make any effort to not be loud. For us Westerners, the truth is that somebody gobbing on a train floor is considered to be pretty rude and rather disgusting. And so, I look over at the guy, and of course they don't care. At one point I looked at him trying to give him the "are you kidding me" look, and he just smiled, so I knew that it was pointless to do anything about it. And if I recall correctly, I get up pretty early in Chengdu so I could get the entire trip done in one day. So quite frankly, I was getting to be a little bit grumpy, and the gobber didn't help things, and the smoky atmosphere didn't help things either. So I think I had a couple hours to wait for my train. Show you these beautiful wildflowers glowing in the light. And the station was packed, so there was absolutely nowhere to sit. And for me to try and haul my luggage through the huge amount of people was not something I really want to do either. So I just stayed beside the gobber. And he kept doing it several times. And we're talking about it's just a couple inches from my feet, some of his gobs. So I was feeling really grumpy. And then at one point, I just noticed what was obviously a mother, a Chinese woman, probably 30 something years old maybe, very pretty woman, and her adorable little daughter came, I guess, from a train and running into her arms, and they had this joyous reunion. And I distinctly remember that helped to lift my mood a little bit. But then after they kind of disappeared, I went back into my funk. But then about 5 minutes later, I see them coming towards me, and the little girl, who super cute, probably about 6 years old, she hands me a cell phone. I'm thinking, what's this about? And it had written out on via a translator, "Can I please take a photo with you?" And honestly, my heart just totally melted at that point. All my grumpiness went away, and of course I was more than happy to do the photo, and my mood just transformed instantaneously, because she had a big smile on her face, and she was just so it was just so nice that she wanted to get a picture with a foreigner. And then if that wasn't enough, her mom in the background was smiling away too. And so I kneeled down kind of like this, so I'm about her height. And then I didn't notice earlier, but then there was even a younger daughter who was maybe a year and a half years old, and she kind of comes waddling over too, meaning she kind of was just learning how to walk, so she's having a hard time to balance. She had a big smile on her face, and she gets right beside me as well. And her mom takes the photo. Unfortunately, I did have a cell phone, but I didn't even think to say, and I don't know if I could have communicated it via the translator or not, but I really wish I had that photo, because that's the kind of memories that really make traveling special. And so that's deeply etched in my mind. I'll probably never forget it as long as I have my mind. So anyway, then a train announcement came, and a lot of the people got up to go on a train. So finally I was able to get away from the gobber and have a seat, and I got as far away as I could from the gobber. And then shortly after that, the really pretty girl who sat across from me on the train, she and a friend about the same age, they come and sit right beside me, and then she hands me her phone, and it said, "Do you speak," I think it said, "Chinese?" And unfortunately, of course, I literally knew ni hao and xie xie and how to say I do not speak Mandarin, which I think is Nipo Huai Shou Putong Wa. And but anyway, I hand her the phone, and she goes, she was typing something else out, and I was kind of amazed that they both seemed to have an interest in chatting with me about something. But then another train announcement came, and judging by their reaction, it was the last call for getting on that train, and they both had to get up really quickly and scamper to get on the train. But I remember the girl I sat, she seemed really disappointed that she obviously wanted to communicate something, but I'll never know what it was. But it was fun. Okay, so try not to belabor this whole story too much, but anyway, I finally got on my train without any issues, and I made it to my main destination, which was Zhangjiajie City. And fortunately, the people who work for the train company actually had a young fella looking for me as soon as I got off the train, and he led me right to the ticket office, and they gave me my money back. So I was really grateful and impressed that they kind of went out of their way to help the foreigner who stupidly lost a ticket. But anyway, that all ended up working out okay. Ni hao, greeting from China. I'm here in Zhangjiajie National Park in Hunan Province, China, and I've been in China for 1 week now. It's been an interesting trip so far. I've had some tests of patience, but finally I'm here in this amazing national park where the mountains are, in my opinion, maybe second to none in the entire world. So anyway, I asked the bus driver to let me off on the footpath that means that I have to walk up all these steps to get up to the mountains. And this is the first real peace and quiet I've experienced since I've been in China. And I think I'm the only one on the path, but it's nice way to get up to the mountain, take my time up there, a little bit of exercise, and as you can see, a nice little spot right here, a little bit of waterfalls. So anyway, hopefully I'll get some decent light today and get some half-decent shots to show you all once I get back to Canada. So signing off for now. So after gathering up all my belongings, I had to get from this city to the town of Wulingyuan, where Zhangjiajie National Park is actually located. And so what ended up happening was, when I contacted the hostel, I asked them, I knew I'd have to do this journey, I asked them how much would be a fair price to get to Wulingyuan in a shared vehicle, and they told me. And so the guy at the front of the line quoted me a price I think it was like 4 times what I was told. So I knew he was trying to totally rip me off. So I can't remember how I argued with him, but I said, no way, no way, Jose, or no way, Feng. And so I can't remember how it all ended up happening, but the next driver behind him was a woman. And I think she kind of came in and she offered to do the trip for, I think it was almost half price, which was still too much, but it still wasn't near as rip-off as the first guy. And so if I couldn't get a ride, I was stuck, so I was kind of at their mercy, really. And so I accepted her offer, and then her and the first guy in line started arguing with each other, and he was refusing to move to let us get out of the terminal area. I wish I could have recorded it all, but this was going on. And then a police officer came along, and he was taking part in the discussion. And next thing I knew, he basically ordered the first guy to get out of the way so we could move. And then that's what happened. But along the way, I can't remember if it's halfway or 2/3 of the way, I saw one of the other passengers, who was from China, slip some money to her. Seemed like they were trying to do it quietly. And it was like a fraction of the amount that I was paying, even though it was only halfway, but she didn't hardly pay anything at all. So I knew I was getting ripped off, but at least it wasn't as bad to rip off. So that was the worst rip-off scenario, if I would have went with the guy that I've ever encountered. I've been to Colombia, as some of you may know, many times, and they might overcharge a $1 or $2 on average, but nowhere near quadruple the amount like this guy tried to charge. So just be aware and try to find out from hostels if you go to China how much trips should cost. So while I'm showing you photos and video of Zhangjiajie, I'll just remind you that the scenery in the blockbuster movie Avatar, the mountain scenery that is, the floating mountains, was based on the mountains in Zhangjiajie, and they literally do look just like the mountains in Avatar, minus the fact that they aren't floating with waterfalls coming down them. So anyway, Zhangjiajie is just a magical place, and if you get the right fog moving in, it's just simply amazing and stunning. And it's actually a huge park, and so you need really, I'd say, a good 4 full days if you want to see all that Zhangjiajie National Park has to offer. But even at that, there's another section that's several kilometers away that I actually never even made it to, but I did see the places that are the most amazing at the park. And I'll mention too that there is one or two hostels situated right in Zhangjiajie National Park for a pretty reasonable fee. They don't get the highest ratings, but quite frankly, the hostels in China don't really get the greatest ratings because they're often in really old buildings with questionable plumbing and electricity, and the beds are hard, and so they're not the best. But as long as they're cleaned and you're not freezing, that's all I really care about. So anyway, I went to Zhangjiajie and I did trails that I didn't do on the first trip, and got some what I think are some pretty good photos, far happier than the first trip. But I didn't go to the cave or the Grand Canyon on this time around, because I just really wanted to focus on seeing all the areas that I could in Zhangjiajie. Oh, but I did go back to Baofeng Lake, which was just up the street from the hostel. You can walk there no problem.
言，按照土家族的习俗叫我阿贝就可以了。能和大家一起在宝丰湖度过一段愉快的旅程，我感到十分荣幸，也希望大家多多配合和支持阿贝的工作。希望我的讲解能让大家玩得开心，觉得尽兴，留下一段美好的回忆。刚刚我们顺风游行的右手边上的游船，待会儿到湖里洲之后，大约是半个多小时的时间，我们会从左手边过去，3天1匹马开始游船，下船之后向390。
And just popped into my head. I wasn't even thinking about this until just this moment. But when I was leaving Jiangjie on this trip, there was I was in the bus to get to the bus terminal, and I look over to my left and I see chairs flying. You know, like somebody's trying to hit somebody else with chairs. And it's about a half a block away. And then the next thing I knew, some young guy, he's weaving in and out of traffic, running as fast as he could, and several other young guys were chasing after him. And I don't know what happened, but and I don't know if the guy got away, but it was, again, literally like a scene out of a movie that you see. So I'm at beautiful Jiangjie Park here in Hunan, China, and this is a good example of some of the beautiful peaks here. This is the scenery that inspired the movie Avatar, and I find it to be just absolutely spectacular, and got a fairly decent day for light. Won't be able to stay during the golden hour or anything, but I'm pretty happy exploring a new area that I didn't get to in 2011, so hope you're enjoying it too. And in my last video, I did mention that I always, when I most needed it, ran into somebody who spoke English who was able to help me out. Because there was a few times where I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to communicate to get to the hospital or whatever, because I didn't have a translator that was working without data or Wi-Fi. But so I remember one time I was just taking photos in Zhangjiajie by one of the rivers, and a fellow that looked Chinese walks up to me, and next thing I know he's speaking to me in perfect English, and he said he's from Calgary. So anyway, we kind of hung out for the rest of the day, and he was staying at a hotel in Wuling Yuan as well, and he helped me out to get my SIM card working, because I was having a problem finding a SIM card for my rather old cell phone. So once again, people, lots of nice people over there, although he is from Calgary, but whatever. People were always helping when I most needed it. But I do have to mention that I have heard stories that foreigners, if they seem at all suspicious, they could have somebody assigned to watch them. Now, I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me. But I never felt like I was being followed or anything, so I felt totally at ease. And another thing I can tell you is I felt very safe in China. I don't think, although there's the the gangs, and I won't mention anything else because I might want to go back to China, and I don't want to say anything that might not let me get back into the country, but we all know there's gangs. But other than that, it's very well, I should back up. I was about to say it's very orderly, but there are some exceptions to that. But all in all, it's pretty safe in China. And I remember when I was with the fella during the first trip, and we were trying to get some photos. We were just walking through farmers' fields, and he said, "Oh, that's okay. They don't mind." And so I did enjoy most of my times in China for sure. Camera's acting goofy. I think it's got it a little wet.
10元一张，1分钟就可以取照片了。你们自己在下面拍的是人大极小，人比山高，照出来的看不到风景没什么效果。花个10块钱我以最佳角度，居高临下给你俯瞰整个阿凡达的场景，原人背景全部拍下来，6P到可以调
他这个才清来。要等一会儿。赶快，我给你放一点，我也想赶快。
I'll also mention that in Jiangjie, as you'll see in one of the videos, there's these amazing cable cars that go, way up into the mountains and even through the mountains at one of them. And there's also a big elevator that's built right into the rock that goes up into the mountains, because at Jiangjie there's either the trails that are at the base of the mountains that you wander through the valleys, or you have to go up quite a ways where there's areas you can wander around that give you views looking down more into the mountains. So just an amazing place.
此乘坐安全舒适的黄石寨索道。各位来宾不要再游到吸烟，果皮垃圾请扔入垃圾桶内，并且请不要摘采花木。谢谢您的合作，欢迎再次乘坐安全舒适的黄石寨索道。